I think for me, the why was to try to create something that I knew that we would want, like Steven said, as being the end customer. And I don't know that I had the why initially as strong as I do as the first day. I woke up in the dome. We had a 3-week-old baby. We were in the middle of construction, and I woke up in this dome. And I looked outside, and it's basically in the treetops, and I was like, this is why. It was literally so powerful and magical to me that I might have gotten my why a little bit later, but it was just, I knew that's why we were doing it. It was really awesome.
From the American Glamping Association, this is the Glamping Podcast, a show about the glamping and unique outdoor industry and the entrepreneurs, innovators, and industry leaders and their journeys and stories that help shape their success. On today's episode, we are joined by the founders of Missing Hotel, an Austin, Texas Hill Country-based glamping operator. Founders Steven and Sam Hopkins' extensive traveling experience shaped their vision for their operation. And instead of focusing on what a glamping site should have, they focused on what should be missing when you have this type of experience. Like many, if not most operators, along the way and throughout their journey, there's speed bumps, there's delays, seemingly unsolvable problems. But for Steven and Sam, there were also triumphs, a new addition to the family. They had a baby mid-construction, and finally they got to see the vision that they created from nothing eventually take shape, come to life, and the joy and relief that it brings. What I like about this story is that early on, they recognized that for them to get this off the ground, they needed a careful mix of I'll figure it out and do it myself attitude and hey, we really need help on this one attitude. And often the trickiest part is to know when to deploy which attitude. It really does take a village, and they assembled their team and got to work, clearing new roads on their own, learning new construction trades, and now have a one-of-a-kind glamping operation of their own. Enjoy.
Welcome everybody to the Glamping Podcast. I am your host, Ruben Martinez. We have with us Sam and Steven, the founders of Missing Hotel, a glamping operator based near Austin, Texas. Sam and Steven, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Ruben.
Yeah, we're excited.
So a lot to go over today, but I guess where I want to start is a little bit about yourselves. So tell us and those that are listening kind of where you grew up.
I grew up in Oklahoma and West Texas, and then moved to Texas for work, and we ended up loving the Austin area. And
I grew up in Colorado in a town just south of Denver called Pueblo. And surprisingly, even though I grew up in Colorado, I didn't spend a lot of time in the mountains until I was an adult because my parents did not like it.
So what was a kind of typical family vacation when you guys were growing up? Was the outdoors a part of it?
Yeah, so outdoors is definitely a part of growing up for me. I always loved being outside. Grew up playing baseball. Grew up camping, going out with friends. My dad was super into the outdoors, and I think I spent honestly more time outside than inside growing up as a kid. So definitely so for me. Definitely so.
So for me, family vacations weren't really focused outside. We would go to lake houses and we would have fun, but more so later in life, I found myself just being an outside bug and not wanting to be inside ever.
So you were definitely more on the glamping side than the camping side.
Yes, to be fair.
And I forgot to mention, congratulations on the new addition to the family, who I know is with you today, Olive, your beautiful daughter. I bet that has to be a interesting kind of parenthood for the first time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun. She's a great sidekick. She comes around with us in the papoose everywhere. So she's gotten to experience a lot of the beginnings of the glamping world as a newborn.
Yeah.
Glamping operator in training, starter young. So walk us through kind of when you guys were growing up. Let's picture the 12-year-old version of yourselves. At that point in time, what did you want to be when you were growing up? Did you have any idea of maybe what that would look like, adulthood? Did you have something that was kind of top of mind in regards to a profession?
Yeah, I think at 12, I mentioned baseball. I was a kid and definitely dreamed of being a pro baseball player. Somehow I ended up a foot shorter than my dad, so it wasn't quite in the cards. But I think definitely. I enjoyed entrepreneurship. I enjoyed flying. I enjoyed planes. Which I've recently gotten my pilot's license. I think it was oddly, in high school, I was much more, I wanted to start a business. I loved the entrepreneurial ventures. I loved the change and I loved the variety of things. I wanted to create something that, basically I could hire all my friends and family and which later down the road definitely comes with its challenges. I definitely loved entrepreneurial kind of ventures. And even started, and I was probably 5 years old. I started a little pop stand at our local summer camp. So my dad was a camp counselor, and he would take me along, and I came up with this idea that I would sell pops to the campers at the trailhead whenever they were, nice and tired, and so I could buy it for cheaper, and then I could sell it to them. And my dad somehow convinced me that I was doing this in order to pay my dues for the camp when it came my turn to go to camp. So I'll still go back in Oklahoma and meet and talk to people, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're the kid that was selling pops," way back. So I definitely had that bug from the beginning.
And mine is totally out of left field. I wanted to create alternative energy. So I guess that was going to be like some type of fancy engineer. And then I think I took an algebra class and realized that maybe engineering wasn't going to be my forte. So 12-year-old Sam, she really, she was a little boy crazy and wasn't really thinking about later in life plans.
So now, as you guys have, your family of your own, you guys are based in Texas, and we'll get to the Missing Hotel and the great stuff that you guys have done there. But where'd you guys meet?
We met in Spain. So we did our very last course, and we both went to the University of Oklahoma, and our last course was study abroad in Alcalá de Henares in Spain, just outside Madrid. So we were in the same program within the business college, but oddly had never met each other, never seen each other over the years. And so we both took this course and ended up, I initially went to orientation of this class, and it was before we had left, and it was in Oklahoma, and I was kind of scanning the audience, kind of like looking around and, checking out the girls. And so I had an idea, and so I immediately walked up to her and was like, "You were definitely not at orientation." I think that was the first thing that I said. So my roommate knew her roommate, and I knew her roommate. So we ended up being a pretty good, set of four that went around and traveled around while we were in Spain, and then throughout the region on the weekends.
And I know that there's a lot that happens in between kind of then and today. But if you were to kind of sum up, because I know you guys have had a lot of successful ventures and things that you guys have done. But if you're able to kind of sum up what happened and what you guys have been up to since you guys met in college up till, the moment that and we'll get to kind of the inception of the idea of the glamping operation, but kind of walk us through the best of your ability. I know that's trying to condense several years into several seconds, but help us out there.
So basically from the time we met in Spain, it's kind of ironic that we met on a trip because we're both really passionate about traveling and pretty much seeing as much of the world as we could. So we both moved to Houston, and from Houston, there's a lot of really easy international flights. Just basically go anywhere south. You can be in the Caribbean or on a beach in a couple hours. And they had these deals called Continental Specials way back when Continental was a thing. And you could fly out on Saturday morning and come back Monday morning. And the flights were a fraction of what they would be. So you could go to Belize or San Jose and a lot of these exotic destinations for the weekend. And so we ended up calling off on Mondays when we would find these deals because we didn't have enough vacation. We'd only have 2 weeks of vacation. But yeah, from there, we just the travel thing kind of stuck, and we would spend all of our time kind of figuring out how to use our vacation days to get to all these different places while still keeping kind of our normal 9-to-5 jobs. And
so from that travel kind of spirit, I think it really inspired us to stick to that entrepreneurial route or be striving towards it to be able to have that kind of flexibility. And so from starting different ventures, businesses, I started out as an employee and had one job for maybe a year.
He was not good at it.
I was a terrible employee. Really learned very quickly that was not for me, and I didn't like being told, what to do. I like, running to the beat of my own drum, and so that inspired me to really work on the weekends, on my lunch break. Our first venture was a beach towel business, and so. Just really simple. We said, we're gonna start something as the foundation, and maybe it's not the end ultimate business, but we're gonna do something that we can learn how to run a business. And so we set a deadline when we would create this and begin. And it was simple enough that we could make it ourselves and sell it. And so had a great deal of response to that, and it was kind of like, wow, I can put something out in the world and other people actually want to buy it. Like it was
you
really
have like a connection to, like why beach towels?
Beach towels, essentially it was one that in traveling, we would go on, we would do a lot of sailing. And so what happens is you get this cotton towel that gets really nasty and sandy and mildewy over time, and you're in a hot, humid environment. And so towels get nasty. And we basically kind of came up with, hey, there has to be a better kind of fabric and material for it. And so we came up with this concept of a beach towel that's 100% linen, and it's rolls very tight, about the size of a newspaper, but it unfolds to basically be twice the size of a normal beach towel. So that was kind of travel inspired that as well.
You even kind of started from the pop stand into kind of towels, and then off to some other ventures after that. It's probably safe to say that it was really one way or the other. You were destined to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, destined or pretty well handcuffed to it because I think the employee route would not have turned out well for me.
So let's fast forward a bit to the inception of the Missing Hotel and the glamping operation that you have today. Can you walk us through, to the best of your ability, where the idea came from, where you were, maybe when the idea got sparked, and just kind of walk us through that very, very beginning part of the idea stage?
So on our travels, we would stay at, we've stayed at hundreds of places. And every time we would go somewhere, we'd have just like little tiny ideas, like, well, what if they did this? Or what if we did that? And so kind of over the years, these ideas accumulated and we were like, well, what if, we tried this, enough people try it. It seems like there's demand for it. I think we'd be really good at it just because of the experiences that we've had. And so Stephen was wearing this shirt one day that we bought at one of our favorite shops, and it just has the word missing. And so I looked over at him and I was like, oh my gosh, what if we made a place that had everything that everywhere else is missing? And then from there, we just had so much fun with like the play on words. And we were like, okay, if we got some land, we could, we probably have 100 notebooks full of different ideas over the years of things we wanted to do. But we just wanted to do something that we thought other people were missing. And that's kind of where we landed.
Yeah. That's good kind of transition into the name of the place. We call it Missing Hotel. And it's a little bit of a play on words. Our idea or our concept is essentially go missing, get away, disconnect, get away from social media for a little bit, get away, get to a place that you can be a little more introspective. And then, we call it Missing Hotel, and the hotel is that's a little play on words because there's not a hotel in the traditional sense. There's not a main centralized building. There's not, it's really the rooms spread throughout our 100-acre property. And so the hotel in that sense is missing. And then the final is kind of, come find what's missing in you, be a little more inward and take that time to separate a bit. So that was our concept.
So as we look at the kind of birth of this idea, kind of walk us through where you were, who you were with, when you guys first came up with this idea of Missing Hotel.
Sure. So I think it really kind of evolved over the course of years, really maybe about a decade prior. And so it was just a lot of travel, a lot of going to different places, going to different hotels, going to different countries, having different experiences and getting kind of ingrained in different cultures. And I think in particular, we always loved the hotel industry. And we saw both things that were done really well. And we were like, man, they nailed it. But like, what is it about? Like, how did they nail? Like, what are the, maybe the place is very simplistic. And there's not a lot to it, but they hit on all points. In some places, just you're like, that's exactly what we don't want to do. That's that we don't want to give people this feeling. So I think our concept evolved, over time, and basically was, an evolution of kind of one a place that we would want to go to. We're going to live there, we're going to be on our property and experience that. We want to provide guests that we've been inspired by.
As you look back at the original idea, and for many people, they come up with an idea in the glamping industry or any other industry, and they can talk about it. They can create a business plan. They can speak with their friends. They can say that they're going to do it, but there's always an out. There's always a way to exit and not get, no risk, not hurt, nothing went bad. But the difference, obviously, between those who end up having a successful operation, not as you first have to jump in, but you have to make it real at some point. And there is a large percentage of people who never make it real. They talk about it and a year goes by, another year go by, and then life happens, and then they don't end up actually doing anything. So walk us through, was there a specific point, and what was that specific point that made it real for you guys where you knew, all right, we've got to do this now. We can't back out now.
So I love that you asked this question. It might be different for us, but I can say for me, I was sitting at happy hour with our dear friend Megan, and I was telling her that, we were thinking about getting some land in Austin and that we really wanted to do this glamping idea. And, we thought about some of the structures that would be out there. And she was like, oh, well, I need to put you in contact with my friend Ruben. He owns Glamping Hub. And I was like, wait, what? And from there, we think we had the call the next day, and you asked us some really pointed questions, things that we should be thinking about. And I think from there, it was just like, man, this is going to be a wild ride, because you were so excited about the process. We felt like we had such a great resource in having you there to kind of guide us through the way that, for me, I was like, okay, this is possible. We got a guy. I love having a guy. And it seemed possible after that.
And I think my advice would be with any business venture is set a deadline that you're going to do something, like that you're like, this is a point where I'm going to make this real by this date. And even if it's not the ultimate, even if it's plugging in a beach blanket, into the equation, it's something, because at least you're getting your feet wet. At least you're taking a stab at it, and you're going to learn. You may fail, but you're going to learn, along the way. So like setting a deadline is critical. So for us, I think this was an evolving concept, but it was also one when it got to a point where we're like, let's get land. I wanted more. So, I wanted land, I wanted a property, and we wanted to be in Texas. And I think, this hotel drive and how much we enjoyed it, really, we had to do a concept like this. But to Sam's point, it got very real when we got into the business plan. And so we sat in, we traveled the year prior to actually starting the hotel. So we had set a deadline, and again, that by the time we turned 30, that we were going to take a year off and travel. And we hit a number of countries and stayed longer term. But we were in Australia at this period, and we had a house that we just kind of buckled down and said, we're going to be here for 2 weeks. And we're going to do nothing other than just work on our business concept, write it out. Let's write out the full experience from the time someone steps foot on the property to how we want them to feel, to what the units need to look like. And so we probably have a, manifesto of sorts that's a bunch of garbled, we may be the only people that are able to read it. This isn't like a, like a FedEx, envelope, perfectly written business plan, but it's our concept and written out. And I would say we've held very true to a lot of concepts within that.
I was going to ask, if you look at that, as you spend that time in Australia, you guys are buckled in, creating this plan for the future. You hadn't done this before. This is your first kind of operation like this. If you were to look at that business plan today versus what you have up and running today, how close or far off are you?
I think in some aspects, probably in most aspects, it's pretty spot on in terms of the experience that we want the guests to go through, the feel of the property. At that time, we hadn't secured the land, so the core concepts there of people being spread out, being away from each other, being in their own little little slice of nature. We've held to, I think, from an experience standpoint, we're still, we are 1 month into operations right now. And so one thing I think that's really important is if you just make a rigid plan that this is how you're going to attack this and it's all set in stone, you're not going to be on. You're going to have points. You've got to listen to guests. You got to have feedback. You've got to read your land. You've got to know you've got terrain to deal with. You've got different things. So I think that, in summary, I think the core concepts are definitely there, and the essence of the plan. And I think if we were to go back and read, I would think it's very close, but we've had to be flexible, certainly.
And I would say there's still quite a bit more work to do for kind of like the essence of the place. So we have the structures there, but we really want it to be more experiential than just providing the hotel room. We want people to go out there and leave like totally reinvigorated with kind of a zeal to go do something of their own, just that they were able to disconnect, re-energize themselves, and then like go attack what they've always wanted to do. So we've had lots of ideas around how to do that. But I would say the one thing that I really want to work on now that we're open is getting that guest experience really dialed in and making it special for each person.
So as you go back, you guys had this business plan. You're saying that business plan, for what you guys have today is actually not far off. But as you go back, you have that business plan, you guys acquire the land, and you guys start saying, okay, this is real. We got to start making our first moves. We've got to do this, right? We really have to jump in. And as you look back at the beginning and really the idea itself, we talk a lot about that end vision and, product aside, but there are literally a million reasons not to even do it at that point. And just like any business, we're humans and things can come up and there's always excuses. And it's often that why that will keep people going along when things start to get a little bit tough, or we start questioning, why are we doing this? Or we can't do this, or this is hard. Is there a specific why that you guys kind of hung on to as you were developing this process? Because like I said, at the end of the day, there's a million reasons not to do this. It's very easy not to do this. And so as you guys were building out this concept and creating this vision and having this, project come to life, was there a kind of, this is why we are doing it? Is it lifestyle? Is it moving to Texas? Is it was something that, shift in kind of where you were in a career? Like why, like I said, there's a million reasons not to do it. So why do
it? I think it's really be your own customer. One of those, like, we wanted land. We wanted to be away. We wanted to have our own place and be really ingrained in nature. So I think that's a big why for me is, I wanted a place to go to that was that for me. And, currently we live in one of the bigger units on the property. We've gone through and lived in and kind of stayed in each unit, to, get that experience from each customer's perspective, and to see little things along the way that need to be fixed and things. But I think that's it for me is in terms of a why.
I think for me, the why was to try to create something that I knew that we would want, like Steven said, as being the end customer. And I don't know that I had the why initially as strong as I do as the first day. I woke up in the dome. We had a 3-week-old baby. We were in the middle of construction, and I woke up in this dome and I looked outside and it's basically in the treetops. And I was like, this is why. It was literally so like powerful and magical to me that I might have gotten my why a little bit later, but it was just, I knew that's why we were doing it. It was really awesome.
Yeah.
Early on in the process, was there ever any points where you guys almost walked away?
There are definitely, and this wouldn't be to dissuade people from doing it, but if any construction project you go into, the two constants are it's going to cost more than you think, and it's going to take longer than you think. That's the only thing that you can hold to. And during this period of time with the pandemic and everything, we had dramatic increases in lumber prices and steel, and also in an area in Austin that was heavily developing rapidly. So the labor resources and trades were either non-existent because they're already working on something else. And then to factor, further in, we are 45 minutes from downtown Austin, but it seems a world away. And so it just is quite a ways off the beaten track. So finding labor and help was extremely difficult. We spent the first 4 months, our property, and people who know Texas, it was heavily cedar basically everywhere. Essentially, like you couldn't drive a truck through the property without getting brush scratches from the trees. It was one trail that went through, and we had a power pole, no power on the property, no running water, no well, no structure. So as raw essentially as land can get. So for the first 4 months, it was myself and one other guy that really started renting machinery, started getting into it and digging in. So clearing and burning cedar for, in the middle of July in Texas, with a fire that's got 50-foot flames from burning and getting rid of this cedar. After we pulled the trees up, there's definitely points where you're like, man, I mean, like, this is fun, like hanging out on machines all day. But like, I came back at the end of every day pretty much looking like I was a chimney sweep for a living. It was like that. There are definitely points from a financial standpoint where you're, again, I mentioned the cost, where I definitely stopped at Quick Trip to get some gas and looked at the attendant and thought, man, that's a pretty good job. I think I could go for a job where I just kind of hang out and I don't have to make decisions all the time. Yeah, there's to your question, points along the way. There's many, and there's always more reasons not to do something, and more people that will, come to you and say, like, this is impossible. You can't do this, or it's going to be so, gratuitously expensive, or, basically you don't know what you're doing. And, that's just, maybe for them, they can't do it, but I get a little inspiration from the no's, from the roadblocks. And it's like, yeah, you know what? Well, just, come back in 6 months or a year and you can just see.
Yeah, I think the reason I was laughing so hard is just there were so many obstacles, especially with like COVID and all of the supply chain issues, personnel issues, people getting COVID. And I think that the kind of natural response, so if somebody couldn't come to work or somebody couldn't do it, then it's like, okay, well, I'll do it myself. Well, I've never done plumbing before. I've never dug a trench before. I've never wired a house before. But I'm telling you, if you tell Steven no, or it's not going to happen, he gets on, he Googles it, and he's now a master or a licensed electrician. He can plumb, he can operate about 6 different machines. So I would say that it was hard, and there were many times, but if you can just roll your sleeves up and figure some things out that you never thought you would do, digging a trench is actually a lot of fun. Let me just say that.
And to that point, because I've been to your property, it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful piece of land. But when you guys bought it, and I've seen a lot, over the years, and what's impressive to me is that often people don't take on the raw dirt greenfield projects because of the sheer lift of these projects, right? It's no joke. They're scary at sometimes, but you guys and they'll bring on teams. They'll, spend a lot more money because they've got to really build everything from scratch. And to your last point, you guys pretty much said, F it, we can do this. And I've seen you guys personally drive those bulldozers and earth movers and to create the roads that weren't there. You guys are creating roads on a property where there weren't roads, and it's a hilly property. I mean, it's really no joke. Was that an important part of your decision-making process in this? Was a level where you guys are saying, we need to do this our way? Like, we're not doing this and handing it off to somebody else to execute. Was that important?
To me, it was. I think I'd spent a lot of time at a desk, working on the prior company that spending a lot of screen time. For me, I wanted to spend some time outdoors and on a machine. So I think that drove a bit of it. I think the other piece of it was, and we hired a general contractor along the way who really, for something like this, it's just a little too out of most people's scope. They don't understand. They don't understand it. And going and hiring a GC, they look at it, and we got bids for most aspects of the project prior to even closing on it. And which were just insane. So part of it was financially, like, this is what we need to do. And we had learned that through building our place in Denver and learned a lot of construction, knowledge. And I worked in the construction field, labor, through high school and college. And so had a little bit of enough there that I kind of, knew what I was doing, and enough to know, when people are full of it, and enough to hire correctly and find great people. But we built much of the property with a core group of 6 people, including myself. And so basically inability to find general contractors in construction without, A, like showing up to the property, and B, just being so ridiculous on price, what drove that. But I think, maybe 50-50 in just really wanting to do it.
I would also add to that when people come out and they say that they're an expert, I'm doing air quotes, just realize you can do a lot more than you think you can. So we would have people come out and tell us certain things and give us astronomical quotes. After like 2 hours on Google, you could kind of dig in and see what that process would take. And once you can get a grasp on that and you realize what they're doing for the amount of money they charged you, you're like, oh, well, looks like I'm going to get a backhoe today.
Right.
And so it's just, I would say it's honestly not as intimidating as you would think. And maybe you don't want to drive a backhoe, and that's fine, but just don't take the experts at their word, because you will be surprised after digging in just a little bit that you can probably do some of those things.
That's good. That's good. And I think too, from a clearing standpoint, the standard in Texas and maybe most, subdivisions going in and developing land, it's a very different way of, most people will take out all the cedars. They'll take out and leave just the large oak trees. For us, we wanted to provide that natural foliage curtain between each unit. So it was very important to me that each location was hand selected. We walked the grounds, and then it was myself or, really a couple trusted people to physically clear that location, because you take out one key tree and you're going to see across the way into somebody else's unit. And, so it's very important to be hands-on at the beginning, with any business and as we go through things. But my definite philosophy is do it yourself first, and then get good enough at it to where, you can hire someone else that you're trusting and handing off that responsibility at the right point.
And, to that point, and maybe I'll push back a little bit here, because I know you guys, and I feel like you guys are a different breed in many ways. You guys could look at a project on the moon and then figure out a way to to get it done.
That's kind
As you look at to that point of just trying to figure out how to do it yourself, for those that maybe, don't come from certain types of, they didn't have the experiences that maybe other people have had. And what do you think would be the most important thing for them to have to actually get this done, by themselves? Because I, couldn't agree with you more that there's just so much that you can do on your own. But I also feel that you guys in certain regards could be successful really at anything that you guys do. And maybe another person or another couple, they would quit along the way because they just couldn't figure it out. Is it more of a mindset of, hey, I'm just going to learn this. I've never done this trenching before. I'm just going to get dialed in and do as much, just obsess over the learning aspect of it? Is it more mental toughness? Is it more of a kind of clarity on the vision of the project? Like, what do you think sets you guys apart? Because I will say, I think you guys should be set apart. What kind of sets you guys apart that you feel that skill set has helped you to take on this kind of challenge after challenge after challenge to get to this beautiful property in operation that you guys have now?
Well, first, I appreciate it. That's really kind of you, Ruben. I think, some of this is you're in the game, you're at the poker table, you're playing, and once you've bought the property, once you're in there, once you've had the outlay for materials, and time is money and the clock is rolling, you got to figure it out. So naturally, the project will kind of have a little centrifugal force here to move you through, and that energy could come out of nowhere to help move you through. Specifically, like what's innate in us. I think we've done had a variety of different kind of backgrounds, and I think it's our trade is a landman. So generally in the energy field, so landman was our title prior to this. So part of that role is just kind of picking up anything and running with it that day. And so, I've kind of joked like it could be selling fish one day and we're just going to figure it out, So I think that we've been thrown a number of things in a variety of different situations. But I think, to separate and kind of advise, just you'll find much more about yourself as you dig in and reach depths that you never thought that were there. But again, just set that deadline and go for it, and you'll find it in there somewhere.
My thing I think that sets us apart is honestly like the partnership that we have, because you can't do it yourself. I know I was saying do it yourself. I guess I meant do it with a partner, but really like when it's like a workout buddy, when you don't want to work out that day and they drag your butt to the gym and you do those first few push-ups and you're feeling good, like having somebody that can really help you when you're struggling or you're unsure, just to bounce ideas off of, because the number of decisions that you have to make is truly incredible and overwhelming. And so just having somebody to give you like a little bit of confidence and pick you up when you need that kind of kick in the butt to keep going.
For every operation, there's going to be key people that help us along the way. And as we know, over the last year, specifically, even a little bit longer, it's been a little tough for operations and operators to really maybe keep talent, find talent along the way. But for you guys in particular, and for Missing Hotel, is there kind of anybody specifically or a group of people that really, as you look back, you say, man, if they weren't there, I don't know if we could be where we are today?
Absolutely. So I think, I mentioned our staff working alongside. We've had an amazing group with a variety of talents, welding to, bringing in construction experience. And, with any group, it's critical to have a leader. And so we've been extremely fortunate to have a great crew chief and friend along the way, in Matt, our
Don't say his last name so people can't poach him.
I'm kidding. But definitely he's been integral along the way, and
Matt and his whole family. So there's a crew, and I'm telling you, this family has been equally invested as we have. And I mean, from rock line paths to building trails and staying up late, and just, I can't even name all of the things that they've done, but the Ensley family is like definitely as invested as we are, as well as Terry. Terry got us started, and he was the one burning with Steven. And I just think we're going to be forever grateful to friends helping us decorate, Emily and Kels. I mean, don't be afraid to ask your family and friends for help too, as much as your crew matters. Your family and friends are there to support you too.
It's amazing how along the way, even though it really is a kind of your guys' project, in a way, there's so many integral and important people along the way as well that help you get to where you are.
Absolutely. It takes a team, and you definitely need to, not just make it your idea, but solicit the input of your team. The people that are working there directly have a lot of exceptional ideas, and you can make it a group project.
And walk us through, for those, we'll share the website and the links in the podcast link as well. But walk us through the Missing Hotel of today for those who are listening right now, for them to kind of visualize what you guys have going on with the land, accommodations. Kind of walk us through the property today.
Sure. So it's 100 acres, and it's about 45 minutes from downtown Austin. It's northwest of Austin, and if you're familiar with Lake Travis, largest kind of body of water around, we're about 7 minutes from the lake. So in that part of hill country, it is very hilly. There's the Balcones Wildlife Preserve, which is a 50,000 acre nature preserve that abuts our property. So from a view standpoint, you're looking out at, pretty well a lot of undeveloped land that won't be developed. And it's really pretty. It's in a canyon of sorts that's been carved out from the Colorado River over time. But the property has a lot of elevation with that. And so we've got three high peaks of elevation. As you come up our drive, you go up 200 feet, and then you dip down into our lower field. That's another 250 feet down in elevation. So a lot of elevation change. The units are wrapped along a horseshoe with a ravine in the center. And so each unit is anchored into the chalky limestone that's native to Texas. So each one is kind of cantilevered out on this ridge. The units, we have 4 domes. So they're geodesic domes. They're about 300 square feet each. And we've built walls and structure inside and made them super plush. We've got private dip pools at each unit, and pretty expansive deck to sit and look out, and been really strategic with their placement and views. We stretched utilities from our well almost 2 miles across the property. And so whereas maybe your average glamping site is, maybe 20 acres with a whole lot of units that are a whole lot of accommodations that are very close to each other, we really took the opposite approach and spread, our plan is basically 20 units, maybe upwards of 30 across our 100-acre property, and to really isolate each one, which adds significant complications and cost to the development process. But it was something that was incredibly important to us for people to feel isolated. So I mentioned the 4 domes. We have 3 other units that we're calling villas. They're kind of a smaller villa in the neighborhood of our biggest is 650 square feet. And then we have 2 that are in that 300 square foot range. One is a kind of like a shabby chic, we called it the chic shack, and during construction, it's a shishugibon, basically a Japanese burned wood exterior. And then it's modeled a lot after the Telluride style homes that are red windows, red doors, and a sharp contrast to that black charred wood. It has a bulletproof glass that's a ceiling that you can sit in bed and look up through a clear ceiling at the stars, as well as like 12-foot wide custom barn doors that open up. So each unit's really unique, and we put a lot into the final finishes. And Sam did an amazing job with decor and really made it a very kind of minimalist, but great warm feel.
Awesome. Well, Stephen and Sam of Missing Hotel, thank you very much for joining us today. Always a pleasure to see you guys and talk with you guys. Congratulations on the success of the operation. You guys have done such an awesome job, and looking forward to the continued and future success of everything to come. But thanks for telling your story. Thanks for hanging out with us today, and appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ruben. Really appreciate your time and all you do.
Ruben, thank you for having us on the podcast, and thank you for getting us over that hump at the beginning and just letting us know that it was possible, because we probably wouldn't be here without you. So it means a lot, and we really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Check us out, guys.
Again, and as always, thanks for joining us today. For more information about the American Glamping Association, please visit americanglampingassociation.net, or feel free to reach out to info@americanglampingassociation.net. Until next time.